do in the aircraft before they go. Most of them are really good at what they do.
It looked like everyone would have to sit and watch some of the biggest waves ever recorded in the Pacific Ocean to hit the shores of Hawaii. But the extreme film crew launched their helicopter to take pictures of a rare and beautiful sight, with slim hopes that someone, anyone, might make it out to the one spot that was surfable, an outer reef half a mile out in 50-foot deep waters at a break called Log Cabins.
When it goes over 25 feet, there's no other spot that you can surf. Logs is the only one that'll hold that size.
At Log Cabins, the shelf out there is quite steep, but it's deep. There's a break around 50 feet that drops to 60 feet, about a 10-foot shelf. And that's what actually triggers the wave to break. Now, when it's 25 feet, it's not going to break out there. It's too small. And so it goes right over that shelf, and it goes up a little bit and then doesn't break and comes in. However, when the surf is like 40, 45 feet, it hits that shelf, goes top to bottom and breaks.
When it actually barrels at, with a 60 to 80 foot face, the wave's incredible. It's the most perfect giant wave I could ever imagine, actually.
But just because the waves at Log Cabins were perfect didn't mean anyone was going to get to them. First, they had to get past the treacherous breakwaters and rip currents that were pounding the entire coastline of the North Shore.
It was like the rapids on the biggest river you've ever seen, The whitewater rafters wouldn't even negotiate.
One of the most difficult things about getting out was the size of the rip chops. We were like 8 to 10 feet of just movements of ocean, which was like being in just a washing machine. We were like two little pieces of cork bobbing around on this little boat and just surrounded in ocean.
We're about 60 yards from getting out, and this wave just jacks up. It's the biggest wave I've ever seen in my life. It was probably about 50 feet. It was that big and it went all the way down. You couldn't see the end of it. We've gone charging up this wave, and we're thinking we're gone. We just hit the lip, flew up into the air and landed on behind it, and there was no wave behind it, and we made it out.
In all, 12 people made it through the treacherous breakwaters to the open ocean that day. What they saw once they got there was beyond comprehension. Mammoth swells as wide as football fields, with tubes big enough to fit a house.
Blue sky, offshore winds, 30 to 40 foot seas, perfectly manicured. They were barreling, they were standing up.
It was absolutely the most amazing sight I've ever seen in surfing. The waves looked as big as like 10-story buildings.
It was just pure glass. And the swells were just coming in so clean. It's the biggest, cleanest swell I've ever seen in my life.
And there, ready and waiting, was the extreme film crew in their helicopter. Now the only question was, were the waves too big to ride?
The waves looked kind of otherworldly. You couldn't really tell how big they were. And then when people started dropping in, everyone's mouth just dropped. I mean, we were aghast. To see these tiny figures on these mountains, it never happened before.
like 6, 7 stories tall, and you're into it, and you're looking across a block long, and the whole thing's moving at 30 miles an hour, and you've got to get across this. It's so amazing to get a feeling that you get from that.
Pretty much indescribable. Like, I couldn't translate my feeling across with words. It was really incredible. Almost a life-changing experience.
Peter Cole has been living and surfing on the north shore of Oahu since 1958 and has witnessed much of surfing history.
I was witnessing the most fantastic display of surfing and maneuvering in big waves I've ever seen in my life. And these guys are doing all these turns on these giant waves. You don't even think about big wave riding. It doesn't look dangerous at all. It looked like they were just having fun.
I saw history in the making. The waves were so big and the guys were surfing so amazingly well. We were all just in complete awe of what was going on out there, and we all knew our limitations on that day. We all knew that we didn't have the guts to do what they were doing.
Meanwhile, the helicopter pilot was going right into the action.
This guy was from Vietnam War. He felt like it was Vietnam in war that day, and he would go down, and a lot of times the surfers were above his helicopter. He was in so tight to that day. At that point, we realized this is history in the making, and here we are with our IMAX cameras capturing it.
After successfully towing into a handful of perfect waves, Ross Clarke Jones and Tony Ray found themselves in the worst situation imaginable. They were chased down, running for their lives from a monster wave that was moving faster than they were.
I towed Ross onto the wave and it looked like we're in the perfect spot, but the wave just kept building and getting bigger, and all of a sudden I realised that the wave was actually sucking me back into it. My equipment wasn't fast enough.
It's a very unpleasant thing being mowed over by, 40 feet of white water. I just remember looking behind me and just seeing this huge wall of white water.
I realised it was going to get me, but I was still trying to get out of the situation. I was like, head down and just go as fast as I can. The biggest danger was the ski hitting me. It's a 500-pound piece of fiberglass and metal that's going to hit you in the head and could kill you in a second.
I had a few seconds to try and get a full lungful of air. I got that lungful of air and I was still riding in this just enveloped in this white screen of foam, and I was actually riding for a little while, had time to release that breath and get another breath. I did it a third time, and then finally eventually smashed me and threw me around like quite violently.
I was hanging onto the ski, the wave blasted me, and I hung on as tight as I could, and it just disappeared. It was like it evaporated from under me. I didn't know where it was, and I was flying through the air for seemed like 20 seconds before I landed back in the ocean and got pummeled by the wave.
I was waiting for Tony to pop up, and he hadn't popped up anywhere, which was quite frightening. I was frightened for his life. You know, a few seconds later, he popped out, and he was actually further out than I was. And yeah, it was an experience.
The worst place to be is at the point where a pitching wave hits the surface of the bottom of the wave. That is the place where the full force of the wave explodes on itself. No one came closer to that place on January 28th than Noah Johnson.
The shape of the wave was really good, really hollow, and it looked like it was going to be exactly what I'd been after, you know. It ended up being so big that my board wasn't making enough headway down and across the wave, and I just was doing everything I could to get my line going where I needed to go, and I just wasn't getting there. When you fall in or around the lip, it can be dangerous. So I turned down the wave, started trying to get away from the lip. I didn't want it to land on me. And I ended up timing it just about as good as I possibly could have, because the thing hit the back of my board and my back foot. It wasn't quite close enough to me that it knocked me down. I ended up being able to ride out the initial explosion. The thing ended up just plowing into me, mowed me off my board, and just sent me spinning. It went on that washing machine cycle. And it was going to be the worst wipeout I'd ever had to deal with. I stopped spinning and tumbling, and the water calmed down, and my partner Aaron was right there. He's right there to pick me up.
North Shore local Aaron Lambert was one of the lucky ones who made it out that day. He was the only one who was actually able to get inside one of these massive barrels and ride out of it. Troy Alotis experienced the worst wipeout of the day.
There was a wave that came in that I was looking for out there. Got towed into the wave, and I was making some S-turns down the face of it, and I was thinking I'm gonna get deep in this barrel. And as I came off the bottom and saw the wave crest and bowl over me, I was standing in this barrel that was so huge and massive. I was shocked. And I thought, I'm gonna just try to pull through this thing and see if I can penetrate through that. You know, hopefully the curtain's not too thick. And when I hit the curtain, it was all over with. My board broke right in half underneath my feet. I ended up in water that was so black I couldn't see which way was up or down. And I knew that there's gonna be a wave behind it sooner or later, and I just started making strokes towards the surface. And when I got to the surface, I was looking at the shoreline of the North Shore, and I saw the mountain range above Pupukea Mountains, and I thought that was the next wave. Turned around and looked, and there was another one coming down on me right then. Luckily, I got a good couple breaths of air, and then I got beat again and got pushed in a little further. Took about 20 more in the head right in a row there. And then Nazre came and got me, and I went back out.
A milestone in the history of surfing was set when Dan Moore towed Ken Bradshaw into the biggest wave of the day, what many say is the biggest wave ever ridden.
Dropping him in and following out on the shoulder, looking back and seeing the wave behind him. He didn't see it. He didn't see what I saw, but it was the biggest. You know, you could have fit 2 houses into this tube.
If it happens to be true, and it seems to be holding true, under scrutiny of all of our peers and my peers, that I have ridden the largest wave ever ridden by a human, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat.
Miraculously, no one was injured that day, and on shore there was only minimal damage to property.
Like I'll carry that day with me forever, and every time I think about it, I get a really warm, good feeling, real strong feeling of satisfaction. It almost felt like, it just felt like such a gift being able to see that.
It was like the pinnacle of surfing big waves. It's like, you know, now's the time to go out and look for the biggest wave that you can find, and they found it.
The whole story of January 28th, 1998, from the iCal contest right up through the IMAX filming of the biggest day ever surfed, it's pretty amazing that the day was such a moment in time that was able to be recorded in such a way. It was amazing that not only could we ride the biggest waves ever, they actually were all filmed.
I've been in so much film productions that, you know, they try to plan the best times of the month and they get shut down, you know, lack of surf. To have an IMAX camera right there and capture the most, you know, rarest sight that you could probably see in a century is blessed. I just told all my friends and family, I said, you gotta experience this. This is probably the closest that I can get you to without risking your life actually being right there.
Go out there and you come face to face with yourself. You find out who you are, what you can do, what sort of fears can you handle. That's really what the ocean teaches you.
It's funny because you ask yourself, will I see a wave in my lifetime this big again? I can only say I hope so.
Aloha. Here's your reported Oahu forecast, including Honolulu and vicinity. Partly sunny this afternoon, highs 85 to 90. Tonight through Thursday, a few showers at night and during the morning hours.
To learn more about what you've seen on this nature program, visit PBS online at pbs.org or America Online keyword PBS. Next time.
What I've been trying to do since day one with my boards is get a board with low volume and a lot of rocker so I can do tight turns and tight spots on waves. What I've looked for in a board in the past is a board that really just suits my surfing. I'm looking for a board now that'll ride well for my kind of surfing, and then it'll do things that I think that I need to improve on.
The biggest moves are the ones you usually don't make, and that's the kind of stuff I like to go for. I mean, if I'm going to go and do an air, spin in the air, and not even have any hope of landing it, but just get a feel for what that might feel like, that's what I like to do. I just like to get a feel for different kind of stuff.
I still feel like I've got a way to go with my surfing and my equipment. I feel like I'm still evolving. It's very important to me surfing these waves just for the fulfillment it gives you. It's very much a no bullshit thing. I still get really, like excited to surf and so on, but I feel a lot more calculated in my approach. I think fear's always there. The ocean is an unforgiving place, and as soon as you feel like you've got it down, it'll slap you straight away. You got to confront your fears once again each time you come here. Yeah, I'll get, adrenalised by, thick and heavy swells. I do think about my family, and at times I've got to continually look at that and wonder, whether I'm going to be pulling back too much.
But you really have to be confident with your surfing. You can't go out there and go, oh, well, I'm gonna lose, You gotta go out and give it a try. Just do your best, and if it calls for it, just go for it however you can.
Jack Johnson, 17, Pipeline, Hawaii.